Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Swapadantikam Vande Ham Shri Gurashyut Yutapata Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatani. Okay, welcome everyone to the morning Srimad Bhagavatam discussion. Today we are reading from third canto, canto 3, chapter 20, verse number 16. So I will start. Let me share my screen. We'll start with the verse. I'll recite the verse, and also we will go over the synonyms, the translation, and the purport, and then we will discuss. Is the screen visible? It's not.
Coming up, yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, so thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam 3.20.16. Tasya nabher abhut padmam sahasraro koru didhiti sarva jiva jivani ka yauko yatra swayam abhut swarat. I'll read it again. Tasya nabher abhut padmam sahasrar koru didhiti sarva jivanika yauko yatra swayam abhut swarat. Synonyms or word-to-word meanings. Tasya, of the Lord. Nabhe, from the navel. Abhut, sprouted up. Padmam, a lotus. Sahasra arka, 1,000 suns. Uru, more. Didhiti, with dazzling splendor. Sarva, all. Jiva Nikaya, resting place of conditioned souls. Okaha, place. Yatra, where. Swayam, himself. Abhut, emanated. Swarat, the omnipotent Lord Brahma. Translation. From the navel of the personality of Godhead, Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu, sprouted a lotus flower effulgent like 1,000 blazing suns. This lotus flower is the reservoir of all conditioned souls, and the first living entity who came out of the lotus flower was the omnipotent Brahma. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. It appears from this verse that the conditioned souls who rested within the body of the personality of Godhead after dissolution of the last creation came out in the sum total form of the lotus. This is called Hiranyagarbha. The first living entity to come out was Lord Brahma, who is independently able to create the rest of the manifested universe. The lotus is described here as effulgent as the glare of 1,000 suns. This indicates that the living entities, as parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, are also of the same quality, since the Lord also diffuses his bodily glare, known as Brahma Jyoti. The description of Vaikuntha Loka, as stated in Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures, is confirmed herewith. In Vaikuntha, the spiritual sky, there is no need of sunshine, moonshine, electricity, or fire. Every planet there is self-effulgent like the sun. Okay, so we will discuss the verse. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet? Okay, so here we see that the context of this is that Vidura is speaking to Maitreya Muni, and he's inquiring further after hearing the pastimes of Lord Varaha. Now he is asking about the creation. And the specific question of Vidura was that how did, what was the specific question of Vidura was, in text 9, he asks, Vidura said, since you know of matters inconceivable to us, tell me, O holy sage, what did Brahma do to create living beings after evolving the Prajapatis, the progenitors of living beings? And then in 10, he asks, further inquires, Vidura inquired, how did the Prajapatis, such as progenitors of living entities as Marichi and Swayambhuva Manu, create according to the instruction of Brahma, and how did they evolve this manifested universe? So we see that the question of Vidura is, how did the living entities come into being? How were they created? Specifically, he asks, like, how did Marichi and Swayambhuva Manu, or who are the Prajapatis, how did they create? So this is really about the Visarga. So there are two creations. One is Sarga and the other is Visarga. Sarga means the creation of the Lord before the universe was in existing, or including the creation of the universe, including creation of Lord Brahma. And then there is Visarga. Visarga means that the elements have been provided, the framework has been provided, and Lord Brahma, who is the secondary creator, he will take the guidance, he will take the elements and assemble them and make them working. So the question is really about the Visarga. But Maitreya Muni, we see that he has started answering from the beginning, including Sarga. It is like a child asking. Of course, this is not for Vidura, we understand. Through Vidura, he's speaking to us to be included in the scriptures for us to understand. It's like a child asking in algebra some complicated question, and the father or the teacher may say that, okay, but do you understand the basic elements of equations, and do you understand how the equations, when moving here, the multiplication and this work? So it's like that. Maitreya Muni is talking about Sarga, and then he will come to Visarga also in the rest of the chapter, where he will talk about how Lord Brahma created different bodies, many different bodies, ultimately leading up to creating Manu. And from Manu, the mankind came into existence. So here he is talking about still talking about Sarga, meaning how the Lord Brahma himself came into being. Here he is saying that from the navel of the personality of Godhead, Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu. Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu is an expansion of Mahavishnu or Karanodaka Sai Vishnu. And from him comes a lotus flower, effulgent like 1,000 blazing suns. And he's adding like Sahasra Arka, 1,000 suns. And he's also adding the word Uru. Uru means more. So more than 1,000 blazing suns. So obviously, this is because Maitreya Muni is talking to Vidura after the creation. We can understand, we can take the reference of the sun as being bright object in the sky, providing light and heat to every other planet. We can understand, but at that time, there was no sun. This is the first creation. The creation is happening. There was complete darkness. So what happened was that from the navel of the Lord, Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu, came out the lotus flower with the stem. And that flower, lotus flower, is effulgent like 1,000 blazing suns. We cannot look at even one sun unless it's in the like morning or evening when the sun is rising or setting. But we cannot imagine looking at the sun during noon or afternoon. The sun is so bright. And what to talk about 1,000 blazing suns and Uru, more than 1,000 blazing suns. So that's the brightness. And Srila Prabhupada, therefore, he writes in the purport, I was thinking like, why is Prabhupada writing about the Brahmajyoti, and then he's talking about the description of the Vaikuntha Loka. So this is the creation of the Lord, and being the Lord trying to create, Lord creating from the elements outside of the universe. These are very relevant, and Brahmajyoti, as we understand, is a pure source of light. So this light is the source, and through that he is creating through the Lord Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu. The lotus flower, lotus stem is also extremely effulgent. Then he writes this in the verse next is, this lotus flower is the reservoir of all conditioned souls. And the first living entity who came out of the lotus flower was the omnipotent Brahma. So there are a few things to note here also. The lotus flower, along with the stem, is the reservoir of all conditioned souls. So that means that when the universe is created, all the living entities they come into being, and they will begin their life. They will begin their next stage of their progression from where they left. Before the creation, they were inside Lord Mahavishnu. They were inside Mahavishnu. And when Mahavishnu is breathing out, or sometimes it's called that coming out from the pores of his skin, the universes, when they come out, the living entities from the body of Mahavishnu also are coming out in the different universes that are coming out. And this is a technical explanation where they reside. So they are then come into the lotus flower or the lotus stem. In chapter 15 of Bhagavad Gita, in one of the purports, Srila Prabhupada also explains that not only the living entities, but along with their karma or along with the reaction, everything is inside the lotus stem of this of this transcendental lotus flower. So the living entities, after in an unconscious state, a long unconscious state, they are again coming back into the creation, and the specific location is within the lotus flower, the stem of the lotus. And the first living entity to come out was Lord Brahma. So here we see that Srila Prabhupada has used the word omnipotent, and omnipotent is the translation of Swarat. So Swarat means that he is able to do things, or master, or Swarat means he's able to do things without any help. And we see that Lord Brahma, being the first living entity, being the creator of the universe, he does create many things. Although we understand that he does not create independently, he takes help from the Lord. The Lord empowers him, but that empowerment is called omnipotent or Swarat here, because we see that he, just like the Lord, he is able to create without the help of the spouse or another living entity. When the sub-creation or the creation after Manu or the Prajapatis happen, which is what we discussed, they happen after combination of two living entities. That's how so there is help required. There is help required to produce further living entities, to reproduce the living entities. But before that, all the sons of Lord Brahma, they were created without the help of any other living entities. Lord Brahma, for example, created his 4 sons, Sanat Kumaras. He created Narada Muni came, Lord Shiva came. So they all came without any help of the secondary living entity. They were all subtle living entities without the gross bodies like ours. And the gross body started coming after when the Prajapatis started creating, which is when the karma and the system of yajna and all that was established, making the whole cycle complete for the creation to go forward. So that is why the meaning of Swarat or omnipotent Brahma means that he is able to create, but he is creating on behalf of the Lord. He is getting the power from the Lord. Then the point that Srila Prabhupada makes here is that in the purport, this indicates that the living entities, as parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, are also of same quality, since the Lord also diffuses his bodily glare known as Brahmajyoti. Because it's mentioned here in this verse that the lotus flower is like a blazing sun, and the lotus flower is the reservoir of all conditioned souls. So the living entities have the same quality, since the Lord also diffuses his bodily glare known as Brahmajyotis. The description of Vaikuntha, as stated in Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures, is confirmed here. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, there is a description of the material world. It's there in other chapters also, but in 15, there is this specific verses that Srila Prabhupada is referring. Na tad bhasayate suryo na shashanko na pavakaha yad gatva na nivartante tad dhama paramam mama. The supreme abode of mine is not illumined by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world, which is what Prabhupada is writing here also. The description of the Vaikuntha Loka, as stated in Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures, is confirmed here with, in the Vaikuntha, the spiritual sky, there is no need of sunshine, moonshine, electricity, or fire. Every planet there is self-effulgent like the sun. So there's a difference that is being highlighted here also by Prabhupada, that unlike the material world or the material universe, the spiritual planets are self-effulgent like the sun. They are light by default, whereas the material material world is dark by default. It may be a synonym with the living entities. The living entities are in the mode of darkness or in the mode of ignorance, and that's why. Whereas in the spiritual world, everyone is enlightened. So that's a parallel I was thinking, no specific reference. So that's the today's verse. Basically, Maitreya Muni is explaining this to Vidura on his question. So I'll quickly summarize. We have a few minutes, 5 minutes left. We started with the background. So the background is that Vidura is inquiring about the creation, but he's talking about the sub-creation and how the sub-creation happened after hearing about the pastimes of Lord Varaha. And Maitreya Muni started answering, but he starts answering from the basics, from the sarga, so meaning the creation that the Lord creates before the sub-creation or the visarga happens. And that's the part here. The elements of the universe, the basic elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, the gunas, they have been provided, and the lotus flower is coming up, and Lord Brahma is the first living entity that is created. Then we discussed about the lotus flower itself. The Lord injects all the living entities inside the lotus flower. That's the system through which the living entities come into being. And the first living entity coming out is Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma here is called omnipotent. He's called omnipotent or Swarat because he has the capacity to create without taking help from somebody else. As we see, he created his 4 sons, Sanat Kumara, Narada Muni, Lord Shiva, Manu. So they came without taking help. And then the further creation happens after Lord Manu through taking help from other living entities. One living entity has to take help from other to subcreate or to reproduce. And then finally, we discussed about Srila Prabhupada talking about Vaikuntha Loka, or the spiritual planets. And there's a reference from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, verse number 6. The same verse is mentioned, where the Vaikuntha planets or the planets in the spiritual world are light by default, or they are effulgent by default, unlike the planets or the creation, material creation is dark by default. We need a light to lighten up to see. Without that, it's dark by default. So I'll stop here and see if there are any discussions that we want to talk about.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
so much. Yeah, so I was just thinking why again is going back to, because if we discussed this in the earlier chapters, right? Vidra was asking the same question earlier, and then he went into kind of a sidetrack, right? Because until Kumara's creation, he came, and then Swayambhu Manu and all. Then Niranyaksha came and then he took the earth, and then he went into Varaha path. I mean, of course, the Varaha pastime and all. Then again he's coming back, right? So that's how
Yeah.
I think that is again starting from. I mean, he's just giving a synopsis, right? I mean, it's not. I don't know. I mean, I need to see what is the next verses, but it looks like that is the sequence, right? It's happening in this discussion. Is that right, bro?
Yeah, and since you are the one who is always attending and you know the whole sequence.
It's a long time actually. Yeah, it's long time, right? I mean, no, I was just I need to see the some commentary or something, but that's why I'm just looking at this the chapter names. So that's how I was thinking, because earlier we in detail we discussed about a lot of elements, including the time
Yes.
and right. So then again, I think yeah,
Yeah.
even as Kumaras came, when Kumaras came, and then I think then Swayambhava Manu, and then the Swayambhava Manu wanted to do, but then again there is no planet Earth. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
something
So
like that.
here we'll see that he's not going into the details
Yeah,
because
maybe I think next few verses.
immediately in a few verses he will start talking about how the different bodies were created, including that of the ghosts and pitas
Uh,
and
yeah, then does that maybe later once
yeah.
Swayambhava.
He creates body, he gives up. He creates another body, he gives up. So like that he's creating, and the
That
living
comes.
entities are borrowing those bodies and actually trying to taking those bodies according to their consciousness.
So Brahma still does it even after Prajapati is created, right? By him.
Still creates after Prajapatis are created?
I mean to say, yeah, see, he created Prajapatis, but still he is very actively engaged in the creation. I mean, he's creating the living beings. The Prajapatis, and I was thinking Prajapatis will take care of it from there. But I think by the, I don't, maybe I need to see the whole thing. I was just thinking, in this case, I mean, as you mentioned, right, I also recollect. So he creates different living entities. After that, the ghosts and the demigods and everything. But before that, even he did not create Prajapatis. I was thinking he did that. So
Prajapatis are in this chapter, it will come, but that's a very interesting question that during when one kalpa is over, the next
yeah.
kalpa starts, and in the next kalpa, the same manus are there. So are those manus being recreated or reborn, or it's the same manu that has been already created and they are just functioning?
Manu will be different. Yeah, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please pardon me for interrupting.
Yes.
See, every night Brahma goes to sleep, there is partial destruction. Everything that he had created is gone. So whatever is happening when he is awake is when all these, visarga activities are happening. And once he goes to sleep, next day morning he has to start again and recreate everything. So, I don't know if that helps. So, Brahma is having a constant job of creation.
Yeah, no, that's clear, Prabhu.
We understand that. The question is, what is the lifespan of Manu? Because when Brahma goes to sleep, there are the upper planetary system that are still active, and everything below that, below the which planet I forgot, the rishis, they are destroyed and recreated. So there are these living entities. They go and
Siddhaloka, Prabhuji. Everything below Siddhaloka is destroyed. Yeah.
So is Manu also part of those living entities?
Manu is also I think my understanding, Prabhu, Manu is also going to be ending. I mean, lifespan is getting over at the end of Manu's life. I mean, the 14 Manus, right? But I was thinking, once these Prajapati is created in that Manu or in that day of Brahma, does Brahma directly still creates other living beings? So I was just, I mean, anyway, I don't know why I got that question. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that is clear. Living beings are already there, and that has been referenced by Jiva Goswami also. I cannot give the reference, but the living entities at the time of when the universe was created, just like it's mentioned, they are inside the stem of the lotus. Yeah.
So all the creation, for example,
Prabhuji, no, Prabhuji. My understanding is, if I remember reading some, in the third canto somewhere, that even though the Prajapatis are the ones who are giving the bodies to, like giving birth, it is Brahma who actually matches the particular living entity to a particular body. It's
Yes.
almost like,
Yes.
when you go to the mall, there is this build your own bear. It's almost like that. So there are different bodies, but depending on your fruitive activities, what you have done and what you deserve and all of that, Brahma puts you into a particular,
Yeah.
body
That's
or a species, and then you're born through one of the Prajapatis.
that's what we discussed, right? That we will see in this chapter that he will
which
create.
means the, as beings are born and are also dying, it means the Brahma has a continuous job. He is going to keep doing it, correct? He's the one
Yes,
who is
yes,
going
yes.
to do the
Yeah.
matching.
Yeah. Brahma has a continuous job, and that's very clear also from the 10th canto, 4th chapter.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
Just like us, we every day we begin, even though there are things that have been automated, but we have to continuously do that. Yeah. So some things have been automated. Some things he's the best engineer, so he has automated a few things. But then every day he has to keep doing.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the nice discussions. Have a good rest of your day. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo